Welcome everybody to the DC New 52 review. I want to thank you for tuning into this episode. I am your host, Pauly DC, and let's get into another one of these things. Today I will review Resurrection Man Vol.1. It was titled Dead Again, and it was written by Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning, with art by Fernando Dagnino, and the first 7 issues were released between November 2011 to May of 2012. The two gentlemen who wrote this series, popularly known as DNA, were the ones to create Mitchell Shelley, also known as the Resurrection Man, back in May of 1997 in the #1 issue of a title with the same name as this one. Like the name suggests, Mitch can resurrect himself after death no matter the injury. Seriously, no matter how violent, destructive, or extremely graphic, he will come back. The catch is, every time he does, a new superhero power gets bestowed upon him. He doesn't get to keep the previous ones, but they can vary in any direction, to typical known powers to straight up absurd ones. Since the character is basically unstoppable, theoretically making him immortal, he has had interaction with other unkillable DC comic members such as Vandal Savage and Klarn Arg, better known as Immortal Man, with that all taking place over the 27-issue run on his first series. Shelley would then only be a supporting character for the next dozen years in other series until DNA were asked to bring him back for the New 52. Issue number 1 starts in a morgue in unspecified location. That seems pretty sensible, with Mitch resurrecting in a big flash of lightning. He then waits for the place to clear out so he can steal someone's credit card and clothes, while it is made known to us that this is far from his first time resurrecting. For unknown reason, he is drawn to an airport next, where a flight to sunny Portland, Oregon is boarded by him, and not long into the trip he is approached by an attractive and svelte blonde lady with a red teardrop tattoo mark on her face. Yeah, that's not menacing looking at all. This lady, calling herself Sue, starts to get a bit creepy while sitting with Mitch, going on to look at random people and tell him what their futures hold. And then things get real creepy when Sue turns into some kinda deranged, four-armed angel on the hunt for Mr. Shelley's soul. Wow. Lucky for him, the power he landed on this time is super lightning strength, so Angel Sue gets a fight put up against her while now saying that his soul is a precious item. The fight moves outside the plane as it intensifies, with glimpses of other phantoms of death Mitch may encounter one day, but for now he grabs Sue and charges her full of electromagnetic force, which pretty much turns her into a big lightning rod that gets struck by a massive lightning strike. A great move, only if he didn't fall into one of the plane's engines, getting a hands-on experience regarding how the contents of a mulcher feel. An hour later, Mitch resurrects in a forest with a new ability to turn into water, where he's also still being tracked by Sue in a new form, saying the big guy upstairs wants him bad. Well, that's a huge problem. On the last page, Madame Xanadu of the Justice League Dark also seems to be aware that Shelley is now among the cards, which makes sense considering that he was seen on one page in the Volume 1 of her series, but never got to meet them. Issue number 2 gives us an answer as to why Mitch was drawn to Portland. His recently deceased father, Preston Shelley, was in a retirement home there, and he wanted to see if Dad could have helped him out, since it's now known Mitch is suffering from amnesia and wants to put his memory back together. The only luck he's getting now is some of Dad's old junk and a neighbor of Preston's named Daryl Roth, saying that he knew both the Shelleys were in secret government work. Daryl then goes on to say Mitch was in corporate research, which then leads into suggestions of a good old internet search. But right before that happens, Mr. Roth claims that he was a villain called the Transhuman. No friggin' comment. There's a brief scene of Sue in redhead form now getting ready to find Mitch, and she's not the only one. Meet the body doubles. Created by DNA in Resurrection Man #1, May 1997, the dark-haired one is Carmen Leno, a former adult film star, and the blonde, Bonnie Huffman, was daughter to some crime boss. Now they're both assassins with top-tier healing factors. I'll save any and all comments for them until the end because let's stay on track for now. These two gals were seen hunting down Mitch at the morgue he was at briefly in issue #1, adding a few new bodies after interrogating some of the staff, but now they're in Arizona until using special teleport tech that they use called a Matter Hammer, which takes them to Portland. The two ladies head into the retirement home hot and heavy, guns ablazing, and when Mitch is spotted, it is clear right away that they know him personally, which he obviously cannot remember. But since pretty much Hydro Man now, their bullets do squat to him, and he's able to fight back, going after Bonnie first, so Carmen protects her with an electric attack on Mitch, killing him. No resurrection this time though. Instead, he finds himself inside of some sorta ghost realm? Issue #3 begins with the body doubles waiting for Mitch to resurrect and scaring off Daryl, who seems to be the only one aware of these two women that shot up the place with automatic weapons. Seriously? Mitch, meanwhile, is having a little visit in whatever you want to call the place between heaven or hell that's not purgatory or limbo. Even the writers couldn't seem to figure one out. Anyway, Mitch meets some scribbly lines in the shape of a person saying that he is Sue or Suriel's opposite, so that would make him a demon. And then Mitch is told that his soul needs to end up somewhere soon or there's gonna be complications. This whole plot thread is what kept me interested in this title because very often in stories involving the two spots, souls are like currency in heaven and hell. So I wanted to see where this all went. Mitch next finds himself being stalked by creatures called Nightmorphs that look ready to munch on him, so this warrants him to kinda force his way back to Earth, where he does resurrect in front of Carmen and Bonnie, minus skin. Surely something these girls won't forget anytime soon. Mitch tries to run as we see Daryl frantically looking for something. Back to that in a few minutes because Mitch gets shot to death, only to resurrect seconds later with rock skin. An actual fight can go down now, starting with Carmen taking him on alone, which at first looks to be a deadly mistake, but as she says, or in non-effed up terms, you broke my jaw. Surprise, surprise, the ladies have highly advanced healing factors, and apparently take lots of vitamins when Carmen uses rebar and stone to knock Mitch out in order for Bonnie to come over and shoot him to death. Again. The two don't even have time to restrain him before he resurrects again, and this time he has a sonic screech blasting Bonnie away, so Carmen jumps Mitch and tranquilizes him. With no time to waste, they plan on getting out of there, except are interrupted by Daryl in his transhuman armor. Damn, guy was telling the truth earlier. Issue #4 opens on the body doubles firing a ton of bullets at Transhuman, whose armor is pretty damn tough, deflecting all the shots first, and then he uses a laser weapon to blast Bonnie. Sheesh, that's like the third time she's been brutally knocked around in like an hour. This leaves Carmen to fight Transhuman alone, which turns into a rather vicious brawl, and hey, she stole my line. Bonnie is left to report the situation to her boss while being gawked at by some of the elderly club right before Mitch awakens from his nap, grabbing her in rage. But they wind up talking a bit, Bonnie implying that she worked for and admired Shelley at one time. So finally, all the chaos ceases, with him wanting to come in voluntarily. The two then have to stop Daryl and Carmen from continuing to kick the shit out of each other, a bit comedically, leading into Mitch being told that the transhuman suit has age-reducing powers, and Daryl wants his help, which is why he befriended Preston Shelley. That is beyond thin, plus becoming young again ain't so bad, and no one forced you to put the armor suit back on. Yeah, I don't know and I don't care. A quick shot of the body double's boss, Director Hooker, is seen, and he looks like something straight from Return of the Living Dead. But worse things are afoot when Suriel arrives, still wanting a piece of that Shelley soul. She's saying again that it is long overdue, and because of her being a special angel, she is tasked with collecting him. Mitch still has no interest in going anywhere, he says, now using every ounce of his sonic yell against her, which is successful in undressing her. Suriel then gets a little overzealous with retaliation, completely annihilating him in her new armor form. Yikes. Issue number 5 continues right from the previous one, with Suriel slightly regretting what she just did to Mitch, not securing his soul, and now believing that she'll be punished by her boss due to this not being the first time she stepped out of line. If you weren't already getting Angela vibes from the Spawn Comics universe coming off her, you definitely should be after this. The last thing she says to Daryl and the body doubles is Mitch most likely resides in heaven now. Not exactly, because the next time we see him, it's inside a medical facility getting treatment, but then the rest of this issue pretty much becomes an origin tale, taking us back to 3 years ago with a kind of random Deathstroke appearance who's seen killing people and providing protection for shady government types in Basra, Iraq. These types include a short-haired Mitch and his partner, Mr. Hooker, looking pretty normal here. Both wear cutting-edge protection suits and are there to test their cell regeneration drug on wounded US soldiers. One of them is Private Carmen Leno, being tended to by Army technician Bonnie Huffman. This was a new part of their backgrounds and an interesting way to connect them in the New 52 and to Shelley himself. Speaking of Mitch, he is also shown to be a real bastard here, which doesn't match what we've seen from him so far, an opening clue for things ahead, but anyhow, he shows interest in Carmen since his special tincture, Tektite 1187, has grown her entire blown apart arm back, except the whole operation ends after a US Army patrol rolls in, according to Deathstroke. However, much bigger problems than that arrive when massive explosives rock the facility Mitch and Hooker are in, causing Deathstroke to defend. Bonnie saves Carmen, so that answers how they became close, I suppose. Mitch ends up ditching the injured Hooker, but still loses an arm while trying to escape, and then yells to Hooker for help. You sorta just left his ass to die. Even if he could help, he ain't. Next thing we know, a friggin' alien shows up just as Mitch is about to inject himself with the Tektite 1187, but instead the alien does it for him, saying, "Not your time," right before Deathstroke seems to kill it. Alrighty then. Back to present time, Suriel appears to have dealt with Daryl and the body doubles, now speaking on the unknown whereabouts of Mitch. However, we find out where he is in an ambulance on the way to Arkham Asylum. Sure, why not? Issue number 6 picks up 5 days into Mitch's Arkham stint, with diagnosis notes being presented about him, and because he's constantly trying to kill himself to prove he's the Resurrection Man, the guards have nicknamed him Death Wish. A trio of head doctors say he is to remain in the asylum, where it's seen he's made fast friends with sadistic guard Fletcher, and with all the sedation drugs being pumped into him, can't even get a grip on whatever power he may have now. That still doesn't stop Mitch from trying to get himself killed, starting a fight with Batman villain Amygdala, resulting in a trip to the solitary bin. Mission failed, I guess. Later that night, he witnesses an original character called Sumo, literally an insane sumo wrestler, working a deal with Fletcher to cause a mass breakout. There have been others in DC to have this name: Sumo the Samurai, who fought Wonder Woman and the All-Star Squadron, and then there's Sunny Sumo, created by Jack Kirby, while this version just went on to make other New 52 appearances. The big escape attempt commences with Batman villains Professor Pig, Ventriloquist, Victor Zsasz, plus a bunch of others I can't positively identify joining in, and for unspecified reason, Mitch remembers/knows how to use his current power now, which is electricity, so he goes after Sumo, but with Fletcher's help, the two allow Mitch to keep the trend of dying in every issue alive. Commissioner Jim Gordon hits the scene with police backup just as Mitch resurrects with his own sumo powers. He pummels the sumo who just killed him, and then takes a shotgun slug to the head thanks to Fletcher. Don't worry though, he resurrects before Gordon can even check out his body, and immediately pays Fletcher a visit in Gotham with his new blue flame powers, scaring the shit out of him to the point of confessing his recent crimes to Gordon when found on a rooftop. Issue number 7 ends this first volume in Metropolis as Mitch is trying to lay low and recoup in the Hotel Broadway, but one night is awoken by Lieutenant Casey, who was seen in the Superman titles, and a ton of SWAT guys. At first, Mitch thinks that the law enforcement is there for him, but actually a shootout has started with an unnamed group of drug dealers who are a rival to known Metropolis crime group, Intergang. One of the higher-ups on the scene, calling himself Mr. Untouchable, reveals to have the same special armor that Mitch had in issue number 5. It's called an anti-ballistic personal force shield system, and he uses it to attack the cops, and when Mitch sees this, it begins to jog his cloudy memory regarding his past. Mr. Yu's actions have reduced the hotel to a towering inferno, so Mitch decides to help anyone he can with his blue flame power, but also reveals himself to the cops that recognize him as an Arkham escapee. He's insistent on helping more people while trying to be arrested, and does get the chance, setting up a final fight scene. At first, Mitch easily overpowers Untouchable and looks to be aiming for a permanent end to this foe, but stops himself before carrying out the kill, and predictably this gets him killed due to his enemy showing no mercy. Mitch then goes through the last resurrection in this book, coming back with very strong force field abilities, breaking straight through Mr. Untouchable's armor, and this has him responding with huge bomb threats that he can't stop. What a wimp move. The explosives are first seen going off from outside the building by longtime Superman character, photographer Jimmy Olsen. No problem though, because Mitch uses his force field power to funnel the blast into the sky. Things then wrap up with Mr. Yu being arrested and the whole series of events being reported on, while Mitch decides to find a public library to Google himself. That's one way to end this, I guess. Alright. Let's start off with the dialogue. Altogether, it fits the tones of the title. Mitch's internal narration spells uncertainty and deep desire to regain his memories. Daryl, Suriel, Fletcher, they all add good moments, but the body doubles really helped in everything from the serious fight commentary to most of the comedic aspects. They were unapologetically exactly what you see. Two attractive lady assassins who, instead of being cold and calculating like many uber serious female killers in DC, they were bubbly, eccentric, and hilarious. In a good way. I thought the art was pretty great. It's thin, it's light and loose. There was a solid crop of new characters designed with the returning ones. Mitch's resurrections being depicted differently most of the time was a good addition, along with having to draw him harnessing a dozen or so powers. The unnamed place he ends up in issue number 3 was for sure the coolest background art, with the chalk lines representing all the times he's been resurrected, plus the garish, vicious fight layouts came off looking quite well crafted. Now, for plot, when it comes to biblical stuff, that's always a slippery slope considering you may piss a lot of people off. But then there's the intrigue behind the tales of angels and demons' never-ending struggle to please their masters. This story is much more than that though, dipping into some secret government corners which I wish had more connection to other New 52 content of that variety. Shade, Checkmate, the Blackhawks, DEO, Argus. Also, having Mitch arrive in Gotham and Metropolis but no Batman or Superman was a bit odd. The action scenes are also mixed in well. I can always get behind a good Deathstroke appearance. The Arkham breakout was a unique one-off. The mystery as to what Mitch would find out about his past and future was enough to keep me intrigued, and full disclosure, I didn't even know this character existed before this event, but along with Demon Knights, became a top 2 favorite for me among the out-of-the-norm titles. That's gonna wrap up things for this review today, and if you've watched until the end here, I want to personally thank you for that, and to please like, share, and subscribe. Please follow me on all my social media platforms, and to please join me next time for the Savage Hawkman Volume 1.